Hello, dear friends. Today, we will review milk and dairy products, their impact on health, and their positive and negative components. I will also focus separately on the connection between the consumption of milk and dairy products and the development of certain types of cancer. The first and undeniable property of milk is its ability to provide fully for the needs of the growing organism. Indeed, for the newborn, milk is a source of essential amino acids, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, growth factors, and micro and macronutrients during breastfeeding. Undoubtedly, it is a marvelous product. But there are many components in the composition of milk, in particular estradiol, progesterone, and insulin-like growth factor. Milk is also high in branched side-chain amino acids, such as leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Insulin-like growth factor and the amino acid leucine are components that provoke tissue growth. Insulin-like growth factor, a growth hormone mediator, causes anabolic action, and leucine stimulates the mTOR1 system. This intracellular system is responsible for cell reproduction and anabolic processes. On one hand, it leads to good things, such as bone lengthening. Indeed, people who consume large amounts of milk grow tall. It is remarkable. Also, such people have a lower incidence of cardiovascular disease. On the other hand, tall people have an increased risk of developing certain cancers, pulmonary embolism, and even hip fractures. In addition, stimulation of the mTOR1 system leads to premature aging of the body. The second factor everyone knows is very favorable when drinking milk is its high calcium content. It would seem that everything is clear. The more milk you drink, the bigger and stronger your bones should become, and the less they will break. However, statistics tell a different story. In the countries of Northern Europe, in Scandinavia, for example, traditionally a high consumption of dairy products. But if you look at the statistics, the number of hip fractures in these countries is higher than in southern countries. It turns out that there is more than just calcium to consider in bone mineralization. Calcium intake, with or without milk, has little effect on bone mineralization. If a person consumes calcium in large quantities, the body does not digest it and does not absorb it in large amounts from the intestines, but, on the contrary, excretes it faster. If there is little calcium in the food, the body adapts and begins to absorb all the calcium in the food and secretes very little of it. In this way, a balance of calcium is maintained. In humans, 99% of calcium is found in the composition of the bones. Numerous studies have shown that the amount of calcium consumed does not affect bone density. For example, Scandinavians have almost the same bone density as men in Peru, who eat 200 milligrams of calcium daily. Obviously, other factors, such as vitamin D3, vitamin K2, magnesium, phosphorus, and other trace and macronutrients must be considered. Therefore, a direct correlation between milk consumption and bone strength is absent. Another factor attributed to the action of milk is the regulation of blood pressure. Many diets designed to lower blood pressure recommend consuming dairy products because they are high in potassium, a sodium antagonist. In some people sensitive to sodium, this causes a drop in blood pressure. Specifically, the DASH diet, Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, recommends reducing salt and eating many dairy products. When studies began to investigate the direct effect of milk on blood pressure, without including other factors, it was found that there was no difference in blood pressure between people who consumed milk and those who did not drink milk without the condition of following any diet. Another aspect of consuming milk and dairy products is weight loss diets. Milk, especially skim milk, which is included in the diet of people who want to lose weight, is believed to cause weight loss. However, some studies have found that people who consumed whole milk and those who drank skim milk did not differ fundamentally in weight. Why is this the case? When people stop consuming full-fat dairy products, they want to replace the missing calories with something, and not always in a healthy way. The missed calories in skim milk are often replaced by eating lots of carbohydrates, pasta, polished rice, potatoes, pastries, and so on. It ultimately leads to weight gain. Therefore, there is no fundamental difference between using fat and skim milk when losing weight. One cannot rely on the fact that only consuming skim milk products can reduce weight. Also, many cholesterol-lowering guides recommend giving up fatty dairy products. Indeed, if a person switches to skim milk or skim cottage cheese, he will experience a decrease in total cholesterol, and that is a good thing. But if you look at the lipid profile, it turns out that the level of high-density lipoproteins in people who have given up fatty milk also drops, and high-density lipoproteins have a protective effect on blood vessels. If you look at low-density lipoprotein levels, there are two possibilities. The first option is poor. People make up for the lack of calories with starches, carbohydrates, pasta, potatoes, and confectionery. The result is an increase in triglycerides, leading to an increased risk of atherosclerosis. Inflammation processes in the body also increase, and chronic inflammation processes become more intense, leading to the development of atherosclerotic changes as well. The profile of low-density lipoproteins, which consist of two different fractions, large low-density lipoproteins and small low-density lipoproteins, also changes. The large lipoproteins are not as harmful, while the small lipoproteins are consequently very harmful. If people start replacing dairy fats with carbohydrates, the fraction of small LDL starts to grow. As a result, even though low-density lipoprotein levels decrease, the overall increase in the small lipoprotein levels leads to worse outcomes. The second pathway is the rich pathway. It means replacing the missing fats in dairy products with nuts, vegetable oils, and fatty fish. However, many complain that such a diet is not available to them for financial reasons. Therefore, if there is no full-fat milk replacement with healthy products, comparing the path of replacing milk with carbohydrates and consuming fatty milk, it is better to avoid changing to the intake of skim milk products, but to consume fatty milk and milk products. There is also the factor of milk's influence on the development of diabetes mellitus. It was long believed that milk could lead to type 1 diabetes because the protein in milk can produce antibodies in the body that attack the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans, the pancreas. Since these cells produce insulin, this could lead to type 1 diabetes. However, according to the studies done, this claim was not confirmed. Another opinion was that drinking milk could interfere with the likelihood of developing type 2 diabetes, but this has also not been confirmed. Thus, the effect of milk on the development of type 1 and type 2 diabetes has not been proven. Now, let's talk about the essential effect of milk on the development of cancer processes. In addition to proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and vitamins, milk contains a lot of hormones because 75% of cows that produce milk are pregnant. The body of the pregnant cow secretes prolactin, progesterone, estradiol, insulin-like growth factors, and many other hormones into the milk. Progesterone and estradiol are female sex hormones that adversely affect postmenopausal women. In their body, progesterone and estradiol levels should be low at normal levels, and if they get these hormones from dairy products, it leads to endometrial cancer and breast cancer. The fact is that there are hormone-dependent forms of cancer that can manifest in postmenopausal women. It's not a matter of what kind of milk, whole or pasteurized, but rather that those hormones are not degraded by heat treatment. That's why such women should be careful about drinking milk. Also, milk consumption causes an increased risk of prostate cancer in men. However, milk consumption reduces the risk of colon cancer. It is precisely due to its high calcium content. Another effect of milk on men is also significant. It's that milk, as I said, has a fair amount of estradiol and prolactin. It, in turn, can adversely affect the male sexual system and lead to impaired testosterone synthesis. High levels of estradiol in the male body will block luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone by a negative feedback mechanism. This will or may lead to impaired sperm quality in men and impaired testosterone synthesis. This information is my speculation, but it seems quite possible this mechanism of milk influences the number and function of sperm in men, and some of the problems that can occur in men, that is, possible impairment of potency and development of gynecomastia. At the very least, this is something to keep in mind. I believe that the concerns may be well-founded. Many people think that consuming milk from the village, from under their cows, will save them from developing some adverse effects. But as I said, 75% of cows are pregnant, which means there are hormones in milk, no matter where and in what conditions the cow is raised and kept. Sure, there may be a difference in the components of the milk because of the composition of the food they are fed or the use of growth hormone, but the amount of hormones associated with pregnancy will be the same. Based on the information I gave, it turns out that there is no need for an adult to consume milk. In addition to milk, you can find calcium sources in broccoli, kohlrabi, and cauliflower. You can replace milk with legumes, beans, peas, lentils. Dairy products can easily be replaced by soy or nuts. In other words, there are no problems in terms of calcium. You can also find substitutes for everything else. Therefore, I would not recommend the consumption of milk for adults. Of course, you can consume fermented foods, such as cottage cheese, and fermented milk products, with some caution and small amounts. Peptide hormones are degraded in these products. Insulin-like growth factor is absent, and there is less chance that estradiol, progesterone, and prolactin will be there. Nevertheless, their amount should not be high and not form the basis of the diet. Logic says that if we don't want to grow old, we should avoid the action of many branched-chain amino acids, and milk and dairy products are rich in them. Therefore, the principle is as follows. If a person is young, healthy, physically active, and wants to build muscle mass by doing sports, dairy products can be consumed in moderate quantities to grow muscle mass and endurance. But if a person is an adult, it is unlikely that dairy products will be helpful to him, because they, on the contrary, can provoke aging, especially if a person leads a sedentary lifestyle. I shared with you objective information about milk and my subjective conclusions on the matter. Thank you so much for listening to the end. Always for you, Dr. PopMed.